So thanks for coming to the San Francisco Bitcoin Meetup. Our first talk tonight is Greg Slepak from okTurtles Foundation, and he's talking about securing communications with blockchains.
Thank you, Paige. All right, so thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to be talking about securing communications with blockchains. So to start, I'd like to point out that the internet has a problem. In fact, the internet has many problems. But the problem that I'm going to be talking about today, and the problem that we're trying to solve, is the problem of authentication. Authentication is the problem of Mr. Miyagi. Is that really you? Not Mr. Miyagi. The way that it works online today is actually a little bit more deceptive. They tell you that, yes, I'm Mr. Miyagi, but the reality is that they're not Mr. Miyagi. So let's give an example of how this works with HTTPS. When you connect to a server, your browser is sent something that's called a certificate, also referred to as an SSL or TLS certificate. And your browser checks to see if that certificate is legitimate. It is, after all, what is supposed to confirm the identity of the website that you're trying to connect to. How does your browser do this? When they invented SSL about 2 decades ago, they decided to outsource this responsibility to third parties called certificate authorities. And today, every browser ships with several hundred certificate authorities that it implicitly trusts on your behalf to make these decisions. In total, there are over 1,000 certificate authorities out there that operating systems and web browsers trust. So, it's not that it trusts all of them. It's not like a unanimous vote. It's just one vote is enough. So, a single person needs to say, yeah, this certificate is legitimate, and your browser will then believe it, and will tell you that the connection to this website is secure. We had a problem a couple of years ago where such an attack happened on DigiNotar, and I believe several hundred websites had certificates issued for them fraudulently. The CEO of Komodo had this to say, that it seems that they, the attackers, need these certificates. And they will not stop attacking. And the reason is simply because they can't. The system is fundamentally broken, and it invites hackers and governments and disgruntled employees and whoever wants the amazing power of being able to impersonate any website on the internet that they choose. So I'm here to tell you that there is this thing. Some of you might have heard of it. It's called a blockchain. And the blockchain can secure online communication end-to-end. You have no idea how difficult it was to find an appropriate picture. Searching butts touching. Forgery.
I bet there's a lot of inappropriate ones there.
Without relying on central authority figures. Or the untrustworthy. Something about Namecoin and DNS chain. Insert technical details here. Yay. The end. Thank you. So, how do we solve authentication? Authentication is really a key distribution problem. What does that mean? You can think of this simply as an identity distribution problem. So, to get a little bit technical, I will introduce a word that users should never have to hear, and that is a public key. In cryptography, a public key represents your identity. And you can think of it as your face. Anyone can see it, and more importantly, anyone can copy it. It doesn't matter. That, by the way, is not Barack Obama's face. That is a 3D model of Barack Obama's face. Your private key, you can think of it as your soul. It's what prevents others from impersonating you. So, to go back to Alice and Bob, who want to communicate with each other. The way that this traditionally works, and Alice can be, for example, a user who wants to connect to Facebook, and Bob can be Facebook. Or Alice can be Alice, and Bob can be Bob Marley. So both of them have public keys, and in an ideal world, they simply exchange these public keys. Alice gives hers to Bob, and Bob gives his to Alice. So how is this done today? Let's go over HTTPS to start. In HTTPS, the system that does this key exchange is called X509. And in X509, these third parties are able to magically sign certificates on behalf of websites and then give them to those who want to connect to those sites. The problem is that these keys don't really belong to the owners. The owners don't have control. They delegate that control. They outsource that control to third parties. So that's why we have the man-in-the-middle problem with HTTPS. So Google runs into this problem constantly. Google is a frequent target of these man-in-the-middle attacks. And it is a problem for them because it harms their reputation when their users in various countries are being man-in-the-middle by those governments. So Google has an incentive to solve this problem, and the current solution that they're working on is called certificate transparency. We reviewed certificate transparency, and you can go on our blog to read about it. It's a very complicated system that doesn't change X509. It just puts some bandages on top of it, and those don't really help. In certificate transparency, they will talk about various different kinds of proofs, but these proofs do not detect misissued certificates by rogue certificate authorities, even if gossip of so-called sign treat heads successfully occurs. See our blog post for technical details. In the best case scenario, should everything go according to plan, the best that you can hope for with certificate transparency is that misissuance is detected after an attack has occurred, the damage has been done, and you are able to figure out what certificate authority is responsible. And then what do? You go to the certificate authority, complain, and what do they say? They simply throw the blame on to hackers, most likely, that they were hacked. What else are they going to say? So what about chats? I'm going to pick on Apple for a little bit. And the reason I'm going to pick on Apple, even though they're a company I really admire, is because they have a little bit of not so truthful copy on their website. If you go to the Apple privacy page on iMessages, you'll see that this little paragraph here. And in it, if we zoom in closer, you'll see that Apple says that Apple has no way to decrypt iMessage and FaceTime data when it's in transit between devices. Furthermore, they say we wouldn't be able to comply with a wiretap order even if we wanted to. The problem with that is that that's not true. The way that iMessages works, according to their own iOS security paper, and confirmed by various third parties, is that your device generates public keys, it sends them to Apple servers, and then when you want to talk with somebody else, Apple is responsible for sending the correct public key to the person you want to talk with. The problem here is that there's absolutely nothing stopping Apple from creating fraudulent keys, sending them to the people who are communicating, and then transparently decrypting and re-encrypting those messages as they go. So,
But if they don't, do they hold a private key? Or
no, they don't hold the private key. No,
So
no.
how can they decrypt without the private key?
Because they send their public key.
Oh,
that
they
create.
send their public key.
That's
Got
right.
it. Got it. I see what's going on.
Yeah. So let's look at how this would work, how we solve these problems with a blockchain-based approach. We're working on a project called DNS Chain. And in effect, you can think of it as one pin to rule them all. We use a technique called certificate pinning. What does that mean? This is a common technique, it's standard. It basically means that Alice because she either runs her own DNS chain server or one of her close friends runs it, she knows a priori the fingerprint for the public key of that DNS chain server. And knowing that knowledge in advance allows her to establish a man-in-the-middle proof connection with the DNS chain. Nobody, except with like quantum attacks or a bug like Heartbleed, nobody can intercept the communication on this connection. She will reject any other certificate sent her way. And with that one man-in-the-middle group connection, she is able to create man-in-the-middle group connections to all of the other websites on the internet. She puts her public key into Namecoin, and here's how it works with Alice and Bob. Alice puts her public key via DNS chain into the Namecoin blockchain, and that propagates out to the rest of the Namecoin network. And she, in a sense, is registering her identity. She says, I want to register ID/Alice, and here's my public key for that. That gets sent out to the rest of the network, and it appears in Bob's blockchain, which he has locally stored on his server. So you can think of it as a decentralized, distributed, secure database. And all of this is protected by proof of work. You guys can ask me about 51% attacks after. The short of that is that it mostly amounts to censorship. It's not actually that big of a deal for these purposes. So alternatively, both Alice and Bob could be using the same DNS chain server, which also has locally running on it Namecoin. That's if they trust whoever is running the server. And they can exchange keys that way. The blockchain allows for user-friendly applications. Applications that people are familiar with today for insecure communication. The blockchain makes it possible to have secure communication with a level of ease of use that reminds people of today's insecure communication. So how does email work? Email works just like normal for domains that are stored in the blockchain. The way that works is that whoever owns the domain, for example, gmail.bit or gmail.com, if Google migrates the .com into the blockchain, there's a way to do that. Alice's email client, when she types in bob@gmail.bit, gets the public key for gmail.bit over a man-in-the-middle proof connection, so there's no problem there. Then uses that public key to request Bob's public key from gmail.bit itself. And that's also done over a man-in-the-middle proof connection because it's protected by the first one. And so this allows you to always have the right key in a sense. There's no revocation problems. You just have whatever is the most recent entry in the blockchain is the most accurate one, and that's the one that you use to encrypt email. So from an end user perspective, this works just like regular email, basically. You just type in the person you want to talk to, and you hit go, and that's it. There's that initial step of registering it, but beyond that, clients can automate all that stuff to a level of ease of use that matches today's unencrypted communications. How does it work for chats? Well, let's use the example of iMessages. Chats work just like iMessages does today, except instead of trusting Apple, you trust yourself or a friend, or if you want, and if you trust Apple, you can trust Apple. They have their own DNS chain server. The pros of this system are that it gives you real ownership, it provides censorship resistance, and it's secure. The cons of this system are that it provides real ownership. With real ownership, you have the downside of real loss. So for example, today when you register a domain, or say, for example, somebody else registers a domain that you have a trademark over, you can go to ICANN and complain and sue them and have it transferred back to you. You can't do that with the blockchain. If somebody actually has a domain, you can't take it back from them, and that's a double-edged sword. That you have to that can be dealt with only if you know through the legal system who actually owns that entry. If you don't know, you're kind of out of luck. Maybe wait until it expires and then try to grab it if they don't re-register it. But it makes sense for a whole lot of applications today. It makes sense for marginalized communities who have their domains taken away from them en masse. It also makes sense for messaging applications like iMessage and for email. And there's no reason that the two systems can't exist alongside each other. Some suggestions for solving issues with the way that Namecoin currently works is, for example, say if you lose your private key, that could be an issue in today's system. So we recommend creating password-based keys the way that Minilock does. Minilock is a new endeavor made by the creator of CryptoCat, Nadim, I forget his last name, starts with K, I believe. And he basically forces users to come up with really strong, really long passwords. And based off of those passwords, he generates a public-private key pair. So that password-based key can be used to create a super master key that overrides others in case those others get lost. Another recommendation is provider-based identities, such as the example I gave already with bob@gmail.bit. And to wrap up, I'd like to mention some awesome people who are working in this area. The folks at OpenBazaar are integrating DNS chain for authenticating identities on the OpenBazaar network. OpenBazaar, if you haven't heard of it, is a fantastic project. It's a decentralized marketplace. So you can think of it as a decentralized eBay, effectively. Of course, the Namecoin developers who have been working hard and long on the Namecoin blockchain deserve a lot of praise and a lot of money also to help them with their work, because they're doing good stuff. And the folks at OneName who are currently subsidizing Namecoin registrations so that you don't have to pay anything to get your identity stored in the Namecoin blockchain. They're doing a lot of good work too. And finally, thank you all for coming here and listening to this talk. If there's any time, I can take questions.
Are there any questions?
I had a question, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah,
Okay. Does OneName allow you to register a name with the regular ID namespace, or do they have their own namespace?
They have their own namespace.
Right. So they don't really let you register a .bit domain or anything like that, right?
They're focusing on identities. So the big issue that we have today is that nobody owns their identity these days online. People's identities, the closest they come to is their sort of their Twitter profile or their blog, and you don't own your Twitter profile, you borrow it from Twitter, you don't own your blog, you rent it from ICANN. So with the blockchain, you actually own your online identity, and they're focusing on, their namespace is called u/. It's just their thing. I think it follows a very similar schema to ID/, and I think they're considering merging the two as well. I encourage them to do so. I think it's a good idea. Show good faith to the Namecoin developers as well. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
So what's the actual state of being able to, like a normal user being able to go to a .bit domain right now?
I believe there are Namecoin registrars out there. The problem with them is that you have to trust them. You know, they essentially generate the private keys, and so you don't completely own your domain. The real current state of registering domains in the Namecoin blockchain is absolutely terrible. And it's a great, huge opportunity for somebody to make a domain registrar that allows people to securely register their own domains while holding on to their private key and not sharing it. I believe the OneName folks are working on that. And they have certainly demonstrated competence as far as allowing people to register their name, their identities in the Namecoin blockchain. So doing domains is not too much more difficult.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of actual end users being able to navigate to like a .bit domain in a normal browser, like what is the state of that currently?
Right, so if you point your DNS server to ours, we're running our own DNS chain server that we just made public. If you change your DNS settings, you'll be able to access .bit domains. The next step is accessing those domains securely. Overriding the browser's verification mechanism, making it not rely on X509, but on DNS chain, so that it can verify the fingerprint via the blockchain. We're working on that. Browser extensions are really difficult to implement. That's something we're working on currently.
Last question, anyone more?
Yeah, if the domain name system is built on top of Bitcoin, can you also do things like multi-signature, so you can have a name registered to multiple keys?
Yes, I believe so. Pretty sure.
Not currently. It's Namecoin. Yeah, Namecoin doesn't have multi-sig right now.
Well, I'm not sure if Namecoin has multi-sig implemented at the moment, but there's nothing preventing them
Namecoin
from
does
doing
not
that.
have multi-sig at the moment.
Okay, cool.
That will be fixed as soon as the code base is.
Are you Ryan? Oh. So Ryan's one of the core Namecoin developers. He knows what he's talking about. How are you doing? I don't think you're doing
All right.
Are we done with questions, or are we moving on to the next one?
We can still take questions just because we're having some technical
Have you had a chance to check out the EFF announcement today with Mozilla and
Yes.
San Francisco? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. I forgot the exact name of the endeavor that they're working on, if you remember. Let's Encrypt. Yeah, okay. So what that is it's essentially two things. It's an announcement of the second free certificate authority. So in other words, you don't have to pay, with this certificate authority, you don't have to pay to get a certificate that doesn't do anything. So that's, an improvement.
Still a centralized authority.
Well, it's not just centralized, but it's also undermined by all the other authorities out there who are not trustworthy. Just because you get a free certificate from them, the system is still broken. It's not going to protect your customers. You could pay $0, you could pay $300 for your certificate. It still doesn't protect your visitors from man-in-the-middle attacks. It's a good thing that they're doing that, because it allows people to kind of go above HTTP and not have to pay for certificates that don't work. We don't, that's not a good thing. So that's an improvement. The second thing that they're doing, by the way, I should mention the first certificate authority that is currently accepted by all major web browsers that does that is called Start SSL, and they've been doing that for a while. So the second thing that the announcement was about was a utility for server administrators to create these certificates and set up their websites with them, and make it really easy to do that. That's another big pain point right now, and why so many websites haven't moved to HTTPS, because of how difficult just creating a certificate is with the open SSL command. So that's the second thing that they announced.
More questions? Last one?
All right.
Thank you, Greg.
No problem. Thank you very much. Do you want me to read this? Yes. What? No. Can you switch it back to the Meetup screen? No, I don't need to switch it back.
Hello, everyone. So our next speaker tonight is Ryan Taylor. He's from Blocktech, and he's speaking about blockchains for permanent and perpetual history. I think he's not going to be using slides, but he's going to be talking and then showing you a demo of something that he's built.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Taylor, as Paige said. Thanks for the introduction, Paige. And I am the front-end developer for a company called Blockchain Development Group, Blockchain Technology Group. Get the brand name right. Also called Blocktech, much easier. And I'm here to talk to you briefly about history. And I'll keep it brief, I promise. I'm really here to talk to you about the destruction of history. And let's start with the phrase, history is written by the victors. Now this is a phrase that is generally taken as a matter of fact. It has been for a very long time. And the irony of this phrase is that the writing that is being referred to is actually more often than not about destruction. Now, throughout history, it has been written through the process of destroying cultural knowledge. It has been burning of libraries after wars. It's been raiding museums that are full of irreplaceable amounts of history and society knowledge, cultural knowledge, art, all of the stuff that just absolutely cannot be replaced. Now, the history books, as a result, don't end up relating actual events or a series of actual events. Instead, it's sort of a composite of these pieces that were not destroyed. And plus a little bit of the victor's narrative, to make it kind of work for what they need to tell. Now, the blockchain, this new technology that we have, gives us permanent store of information. Bitcoin, being the first and most popular app, the reason we're all here, is a decentralized ledger of financial transactions. But that's not all that a blockchain can be. It's a decentralized store of information, of data, of cultural knowledge, if you want it to be. So, let me show you what we've been doing. Now, the solution that we see is to use the blockchain to write history that can't be erased, to write history that the people are telling, to write the history in a distributed, decentralized, and permanent way. We call this Alexandria, named after the Library of Alexandria, which is, of course, known for being destroyed repeatedly and irreplaceable knowledge being lost. What Alexandria is a distributed application that runs on the blockchain that stores any kind of historical data as a hash which relates to a decentralized database. Now, we can do this via various different technologies that we have right now. The blockchain can be any blockchain that can store enough data for what you want to store. And the rich media can be stored via distributed hash tables, via BitTorrent, via MadeSafe, via these other technologies that we have coming out. Now, the back end is what I've just explained to you. It's data stored on a blockchain as a hash if it must be. If it's just text, then we can store the text, metadata, and whatnot, and links to other permanent stores of data, which are decentralized. Now, the way Alexandria works is you have a decentralized librarian, which is software running on any server that you want. And right now we're starting with Twitter, because the people's history is being told through Twitter. And also because Twitter is being censored, left and right, by governments, by Twitter itself, and by individuals who might say something foolish that they don't want to say. They might say something the government doesn't want them to say, or they might say something Twitter doesn't want them to say, and it all gets taken down. Now you write that into a blockchain, and you solve the problem. Twitter can't remove it, no corporation can remove it, no individual can remove it. It's written into the blockchain, it's forever referenced. And then we build a front end to go with it. Now this front end we've built for Alexandria allows you to interact with the tweets. It gives you volume bars down here. You can see massive gaps because we're in alpha, so there's times where it isn't quite archiving. But I can show you the real effect of this pretty quickly. Now with these word clouds, that first word cloud you saw was archive titles that we've created. And archives will be able to be created by any individual user simply by approaching a set of librarians, saying what you want it to archive, and then the librarians will give you an option. You'll have a free market of librarians to choose from based on cost and how long you want the archive to run. And you end up with something like this. This is the Ukraine archive, and this is simply a front end we've built. It's all open source. Anyone will be able to build any front end they want, and it's quite agnostic. It's blockchain agnostic, so you can actually create plugins aside from the Twitter one we've already done, or a different Twitter one if you wish. You can do RSS, and we'll be working on that. We'll also be working on Internet Archive, and archiving all of that data via hashes into the blockchain. But we started with Twitter simply because it is the people's history being told as it's told. And here we have the Ukraine archive. These are the 150 top words that appear in tweets that we have archived, which also contain the word Ukraine. And you see we've got multi-language support in here, so there's Ukrainian and Russian and various things coming around. There is also the word tanks. And now I'm going to show you the real effect of this. When we click on this and we see these volume bars right here along this timeline from when our archive started, barely anything, and then, oh, it looks like there's something big happening around the 7th. That was when Russia decided to invade Ukraine with tanks. Now, I would not have even known about this because I was busy writing software, and it fully illustrated it to me. All of a sudden, I noticed tanks showed up real big in that word cloud, and we're able to now see all of these tweets that contain the word Ukraine because they're in the Ukraine archive, and also contain the word tanks. This clearly, this is permanent. This is coming from the blockchain right now. And Twitter can't remove this. Users can't remove this. We have links going everywhere. It's all stored in there. Ukraine's not the only thing we've archived. We're archiving. Of course, we're archiving Bitcoin. Have to start there, right? So we'll go into the Bitcoin archive now. And something that I've found pretty useful about this as a Bitcoiner is checking the price. You know, this is all being written to the blockchain. You can very easily just see, oh, the latest tweet involving Bitcoin is there. Sure, you could search Twitter for this, but you aren't going to be able to find what the price of Bitcoin was 3 years ago on Twitter. Twitter deletes all their stuff. Even markets delete their stuff. So we're looking at using Alexandria to archive market data as well. Try to find the price of Litecoin 2 years ago. Try to find the price of Bitcoin 3 years ago. Any charts relating to that are relatively inaccessible. The exchanges are gone. Find the price on Mt. Gox 2 years ago. You can't find it at all because Mt. Gox is just history. An archive can very easily be created on a blockchain to store all of that data per exchange, per currency. Now we've taken this one step further because what we're really talking about here is visual data, analyzing of data. And the internet is rather obsessed with video. Let's just accept it. Along with Twitter. So the way that we see this going is, of course, embedded media, rich media, embedded into our front end, available via the blockchain, via hashes. Right now, of course, this is just a YouTube link that was embedded on Twitter by someone. The real potential of this is to actually take that video, download it, put it into a decentralized system like a BitTorrent file, seed it, put it into MadeSafe, put the hash into a blockchain, and make that accessible. So now that rich media is just as accessible as any of the text data that's being stored via metadata. So where does this leave us? Well, we've been blessed with this technology of the blockchain. This is history happening at our fingertips. And finally, we have a chance to change that matter-of-fact statement that history is written by the victors, to take it back and to write history for ourselves in a permanent, perpetual way.
Yeah.
I'm going to end on that. I could take a few questions.
What's your question over here?
Where are you trying to direct the data right now?
Right now we are using FlorinCoin because FlorinCoin allows for, I believe, 128 bytes of data, which allows us to store metadata from Twitter, which is where we started. It is coin agnostic. If something happens to FlorinCoin, we can move that data elsewhere. It's a series of hashes stored into a blockchain. We can sync blockchains to be able to store the hashes in multiple blockchains. And again, the rich media is going to be kept in hash tables, essentially, at this point. We're also looking for other options to store rich media. But when it comes down to storing 140 characters and a username and a URL or two here and there, it really can fit into FlorinCoin. Datacoin's another one we're looking at.
What about the real media, the gigabytes of data?
That's what would be stored in BitTorrent files and in, like, we're looking at MadeSafe and we're looking at other distributed platforms. The database itself, because the blockchain would technically, at this point, we're thinking it will be referencing a database, and the database will actually be hosted by nodes as well, and they're what's called the librarian. And librarian, this is all going to be open source from the front end, which will be free to access, and the librarian software will be open source and installable on anyone's system. We're running our librarian on an AWS instance, on a micro instance. We're setting it up so you can install it on a Raspberry Pi. And the librarian is paid by the person who wants to create the archive, and then the librarian puts the archive data into a transaction and sends it off to the miners as a transaction.
Yes.
What if you explicitly want to delete tweet, and what if this gets installed within like a private, chat log or private, Facebook message channel or Twitter DM?
Well, yeah, I can see where you're talking about privacy concerns here. And ultimately, we're going to open it up for open source development so that people can build plugins to do this. If Facebook allows their API to access private messages, then that's their problem. It could very quickly become someone else's problem, and if someone creates an archive on you and wants to finance that archive, then yeah, there are definitely privacy concerns. This is alpha software. I can't say that we've gotten that far on it yet. But we do have a confirmation system in place where, in case private keys of librarians are stolen, tweets are actually verified before they're put into the blockchain. But as far as someone building a plugin for Twitter DMs and things like that, yeah, centralized security structures have massive vulnerabilities and holes. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not really exactly sure how to answer that, simply because the centralized system is the failure there.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you have any kind of proof of retrievability of data? Proof that somebody is actually holding the data, or it's replicated to a certain amount of nodes?
Well, I mean, sorry, I'm a front-end developer. So that's Joey Fischella is our back-end developer. He's also one of the co-organizers of the New York Bitcoin Meetup. He's also the lead developer on Florincoin. And when it comes to technical questions, I encourage you to ask him specifically. Blocktech.com, you can get a hold of all of us, and that's really the way to go. Right now, we'll have a beta available in January or February of this year, and that beta will include hopefully the decentralized librarian software as well as the front ends that people can use, and we'll be very open about all of our process. So when we get to the beta stage, then we'll have answers for that sort of question.
Thank you.
So can...
Yeah, with the microphone.
So can you talk about... Sorry. Chair is sliding back. Can you talk about a little bit more about the librarians? Because that seems like an interesting piece of the puzzle. It seems that if you have a librarian, who it connects to is also very important as far as how you're going to store your data and where that's going to happen. Is that going to be open source, or is that going to be like plugins available, things like that?
Absolutely, it's all going to be open source. Everything that we do is open source. We're big believers in that. It's especially when you're talking about history and writing permanent history, open source is very important. And so the way that librarians are going to work, it's going to be software that you can install anywhere. You'll be able to, it's basically a proof of resource type system where you can, you'll be able to install it on your computer, and it's processing power. And so someone will go to, the way that we're talking about being able to create an archive will be through a web front end. We're also working on a crypto vending machine that will take cash in and crypto out. And within that machine, we will have a way to create an archive too. So you would be actually to put your FRNs in and be able to then convert it to whatever crypto coin is running the archive you want and start the archive that way. So once the librarians, once the archive is decided upon and the user who is actually paying for the archive makes their proposal, they will be faced with a market of librarians to choose from. And this will include a review system and a rating system. So the reputation is very important to us. You'll be able to see how long the librarians have been running, how many archives they've ran, and, as well as a rating on their actual archives. So if a librarian's system goes down, you won't be paying for that librarian to run your archive anymore, but you are also going to be losing data. And that, I mean, it's potential that someone will turn their computer off, things like that. Now we'll be able to set up backup librarians, so you can set a series of librarians that you want to use, again, all based on reputation system. And from there, you'll be able to decide who you like, essentially. You'll also be able to run your own librarian, and this is what I'm looking forward to doing. I have a Raspberry Pi at home. I'm going to put the librarian on my Raspberry Pi, hook it up to a Florincoin miner, mine some Florincoin, finance the archives I want to create, commit them to the Florincoin blockchain. And when we move to other blockchains, then I'll be looking at those as well.
So, sorry. So the librarian piece, this is maybe, I think that this, if the control, I mean, how centralized is it? Because if you, like, in terms
The
of-
librarian is open source software that anyone
Okay,
can
so
install.
it's open source. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's written in Go and it's open
Yeah.
source.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Great. Last question.
Hi, I guess I'll start with being devil's advocate. Maybe why do we want to record the history of the world? I mean, so many problems in the world are based on a long and twisted and contorted history which we could interpret differently. Maybe we need to start with a clean slate. But in seriousness though,
You really want me to answer this?
no. I don't know whether you've experienced already, maybe it's missed it, but it seems that so somebody who has a lot of resources could keep on paying librarians to keep their content up. So doesn't that
Well, the
mean that-
librarian doesn't keep the content up. The librarian commits the content to the blockchain in the form of a transaction.
So librarians could be incentivized to keep pushing certain types of content, opposed to somebody else.
When someone wants to create an archive, that's essentially what they're doing. They're paying the librarian to create the archive for them. So you'll be able to go into an archive and say, I want to, let's use Twitter as an example, because it's a really good example. If someone wants to start archiving all of their tweets into a blockchain, you simply go to Alexander and say, I want a blockchain, or I want an archive to be created of @Ryan Taylor. And now everything that I tweet is going to be written into the blockchain. And it's all going to be archived. And eventually it will all be decentralized off of YouTube and off of SoundCloud and off of all of these other services.
Yes, but even though the data is decentralized, the person who has a lot of resources more than another person is able to get their data into more librarians and replicate it across a decentralized network more than somebody who doesn't have those resources. So how does that really change things in terms of telling the history of the world as it is today? Because typically someone who has a lot of resources is going to push out their version of the history of the truth as opposed to somebody else.
That is if they're creating an archive of their specific platform. For example, and using Twitter again as an example, if they go to Twitter and try to create, and they have a ton of resources and they want to create an archive of their username, we're going to let them do it. I mean, they're just archiving their Twitter feed. If they want to create an archive of their brand, because so many brands use hashtags now to follow their advertising campaigns, Nike can go and they can do Nike this and do the hashtag Nike this and create an archive of that, and they can finance it, they can pay for it. The librarians are the people who are making the money for this. The miners are the people who are making the money from this. So the money is all being distributed through the ecosystem by the individual who's creating the archive. And the archives are via plugin, they're all verified. So if one librarian checks Twitter and does not see that tweet as another one of the transactions being committed by, then they'll be able to see that there's some sort of fallacy going on.
No, but it doesn't stop somebody just posting to Twitter. This would mean with vast resources, paying 10,000 people to post a certain thing. So,
Well, we've got deduping installed, so I mean, if someone just keeps tweeting the same thing over and over again,
I would
it's...
suggest you, catch up after this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, thank you
Sorry,
very
I
much.
can't answer that. Yeah, no problem. Glad I could help everyone.
Okay, time for announcements. So, in addition to giving a really amazing talk, Ryan Taylor is also our live streamer. So he actually works he works with Bitcoin Magazine, but he does a lot of work for it, and I just wanted to kind of give him a shout out as a person for doing this, because he's been very helpful, and he also came to our help when we were looking for someone to speak. So going off of that, we also decided to not have a partnership with Money and Tech anymore. They're just, in terms of like getting the actual video that they were recording was a bit difficult. I don't know if you haven't noticed, but we haven't really gotten any video from them. So maybe in the future we can start working with them again. But for now, we're going to be taking a break. But at least we have Bitcoin Magazine and Ryan. So also, I wanted to give another update, or an update and just like a highlight. So I'm not the only one that organizes this meetup. I think I want Isabel to come up here and just like show her face, her beautiful face.
Yes.
And so you can all appreciate her for being amazing. And then we also just decided today, we had a conversation with Katerina over there. She's going to be helping us as well. So if you run into any of us or have any ideas about the meetup, feel free to talk to all of us because we're open. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. So we've also been trying to do the second per month meetup. And it seems like it's going to be at El Rio for the time being because we had a really fun time last time. We are going to be doing like a set amount, a bar tab, so that the group, when you show up, you'll get like a stamp on the hand, and then you can drink until the bar tab's up, and then you can start paying. But for that, we're gonna start doing that on a monthly basis. So I'll definitely post those on the meetups and the.
And you'll be able to pay in Bitcoin.
Possibly. We're working on it. That was preemptive. Why did you possibly. We're working on it for particularly the bar tab at first, like so we can pay them the bar tab in Bitcoin, and then, you know, maybe down the line we can start talking to them about individual drinks. However, that might be a little difficult. But feel free to like push them along and be like, you guys should accept Bitcoin. Okay. So that's our next one is hopefully December 4th, which is a Thursday, a couple weeks from now at El Rio. I'll post that on the meetup when it's 100% confirmed. And then additionally, an event that we're looking to do, kind of in partnership with Terry. He wanted to show the rise and rise of Bitcoin. There's a lot of us in the community that are in the movie, and we are looking for a venue for in January, either the 10th or the 17th. We haven't solidified a date yet, but that's a Saturday. So we're gonna try to get like people from South Bay and whatnot to come up. The venue is near the Caltrain, so if you know people in the South Bay that would want to come up for it, kind of give them a heads up. And that will be January, a Saturday in January. And we're going to try to get like people in the movie to come too, maybe the directors. Who knows? And then we also have another venue that is interesting, and we're not quite sure what to do with it, but we thought it'd be cool to do an art show possibly, because 20 Mission did an art show last year and it seemed really cool. So if any of you are artists or have artists friends out there, give them a heads up. We're looking into it. We don't have like definite plans or anything. And also, sometimes we struggle with finding people to speak. Like this month was kind of last minute. So if you want to speak about something, just like ask us, because I feel like that people might be like think that they can't do it or something, or if you want to try giving a lightning talk at first and like getting comfortable with it, and then doing the 15-minute talk, that's a really good path. I think Greg did the lightning talk last time, and then it seemed like people really enjoyed it. So bringing him back to give him the full talk was, I think, really beneficial. So if you just encouraging people to participate. We're not like, we like to bring in like bigger names and stuff for everyone just to attract people and give you the value, but we also want to give you guys the opportunity to speak, so don't be afraid. And then next month, we have something lined up with Tark from the Dev Meetup. He is going to be moderating a panel on regulation. All right. But it'll be good. It'll be really productive, and we'll talk about solutions and what we can do. And we're going to try to bring actually key figures to the panel. So that's going to be next month, which is 2 weeks early on December 16th, Tuesday, just to avoid holiday stuff. So next meetup here is the 16th. There's like 95% going to be a meetup at El Rio on the 4th, which is a Thursday. So that's the next two. And then, as always, so also Twitter. We're trying to build that up. So SFBTC Meetup. We trying to do something there, and eventually, hopefully, we'll get more interaction with the people watching us on live stream. And then also thanks to Coinbase, they sponsor us. They're really cool. Geekdom SF has been giving us this space for 9 months now. Ryan Taylor was one of the speakers. Greg was the other speaker. We'll get this organized better next time. And that is really it. So now we're going to do lightning talk. So if you had a lightning talk, please come over here.
Oh, really?
Does that work? Is that cool? I'm pulling everyone's website up that
Sure, go for it.
Great. So
I don't need the
yeah, for the recording.
Hey guys, my name is Lauren. So I'm actually going around, I'm a Bitcoin educator, teaching corporations about Bitcoin. That turned into working with O'Reilly Media, doing a video. So I'm doing a video on, Bitcoin 101, how does Bitcoin work, all that kind of stuff, and blockchain technology. And that turned into a conference. So O'Reilly is putting on a conference, January 27th. The morning is all about Bitcoin, afternoon is all about Bitcoin 2.0 stuff. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. January 27th. It's going to be San Francisco at the Fort Mason. Yeah, okay, that's good. This is good feedback. Seeing the headlines. Okay, thank you. That's good. So I'm organizing it with Kieran, who is out of Berkeley, the Berkeley Cryptocurrency Association. And is Sebastian still here? Okay, well, one of the speakers was here earlier. What else? Oh yeah, and has anybody heard of the Shift card? The Shift credit card, yeah? Okay, so it's like a credit card that lets you connect it to your Coinbase wallet, or any Bitcoin account. So they're here, they work out of the Ripple offices, and they're looking for a security expert. Okay, that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize.
Hey guys, I'm Micah Winkelspect. I'm just here for a few days. I'm actually from Los Angeles. Our company is based in Venice, California. The company's GEM. I also wanted to mention that I organize a lot of the events for the Los Angeles Bitcoin Meetup group. We've got about 1,000 people now in that group, so it's pretty large and we have some pretty big events. So if you're ever in Los Angeles, please, you're our welcome guests. Come on out and support the community down there. We want to kind of cross-pollinate a little bit. Also, if you want to speak down there, if you have something interesting to speak about, let me know, and I'll definitely put that together. Anyway, about GEM, so I don't want to make it too much of an ad, but we are a multi-signature API for developers. Our wallets are based on multi-signature, BIP32, really all the latest and greatest. We essentially act as a key holder on every transaction. And so every transaction that goes through our platform requires at least 2 keys. We hold 1 key, and you have the other keys. So it's based on, for the technical people, it's based on a 2 of 3 implementation of multi-signature. But essentially, the promise here is that you can add a very secure multi-signature wallet into any app in less than 10 lines of code, and we're building client libraries in every language. So anyway, come on out to LA.
Hey, I'm Thomas France from France. I'm presenting you Ledger Wallet. So basically, we're working on a hardware wallet based on a physical secure element on smart card. And smart cards have been used to secure a credit card transaction for many years in many countries, except in the US. And it prevented target breach scandals and things like that. So basically, we're bringing this standard of security to the Bitcoin world. And so the Ledger wallet is actually a USB form factor with a smart card integrated to it. You just plug it in USB, you access your wallet, put your PIN code, and you have a safe and easy access to your Bitcoin. So basically, all the seed, the sensitive data, the derivation of the seed, the signature of the transaction are made within the secure element. Everything that comes in is public, everything that comes out is public.
So it makes it really safe and convenient to use your Bitcoin. So we are ready for launch. We'll be launching this starting next week for 35 euros, and it will be shipping all over the world.
Amir? No, I'm going on. Amir? You're an Amir here?
I was actually not going to do it, but now I'm going to.
Now you have
to. Okay, so I'm not technical at all. I have
Is this your website?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a retail outlet, a few stores. And to me, I think Bitcoin is very interesting as a retailer for multiple reasons. One, you don't have to pay the fee we pay to Visa and MasterCard. One other issue is security. We actually had our system breached once. Same thing that happened to Target on a small scale happened to us. So at the end of the day, I'm actually responsible for that money. So if you read the contract with Visa that everybody signs and you don't really read it, it's not, I don't think it's a very safe place for us. I'm always nervous about getting our system hacked again. So I don't know if Bitcoin adds any more security in that sense, but I'm interested to learn more about Bitcoin and to see how we can, as a retailer, start accepting Bitcoin and kind of add to the whole ecosystem that way. So if you guys have any tips for me. Stores all over the Bay. We have San Jose, San Francisco, Palo Alto.
Are you on CoinMap?
No, I'm not. We haven't even started. This is it. This is my start tonight.
Get listed on CoinMap.
Hello. We are all gathering over here because we're excited about the opportunity around the Bitcoin and Bitcoin blockchain. And initially, for several years, the opportunity was about sending money or sending assets. Wouldn't it be cool if that transaction log that anyone can now tinker with, anyone can access without even login, be extended to be a transaction database log? And we could build applications like treating it as NoSQL database, as MongoDB or some other DB, that we could create really cool front ends that go to that DB and really cool back ends, and this is what we're doing. This is our team is Tradle. We have a front end that's open source. We have extension of the blockchain that is in the prototype phase, and it's on GitHub, MIT license. You're welcome all to join this thing, and we are building real life applications. We're building the boarding applications like inventory replenishment. We're building the cool applications in the ticketing space. So anything that you can think of. Tradle.
I'll make this super lightning fast. Hey everyone, I'm Rashid from Pylon. We're decentralized peer-to-peer lending on the Bitcoin blockchain. If you don't know why that's cool, or you just want to talk about peer-to-peer lending for Bitcoin, come holler at me. I'll be here for a few minutes.
Hey, I wasn't planning on giving a lightning talk, but it seemed like there was some interest in distributed storage. I've been a developer for this project. It's the interplanetary file system. These are the people who are doing it the right way. Okay, they're incentivizing the miners. They're treating the web as a permanent web of data, using the blockchain to. They're using a novel strategy called BitSwap to incentivize miners to store data. And I think we really shouldn't be duplicating our efforts across a lot of different projects. So IPFS, check it out. These guys are really good. That's all.
If anyone else, last one.
Hello, hi. Hi everyone.
One more.
It's my first few weeks here. I'm actually originally from Malaysia. So first Bitcoin meetup in the Bay Area. Hi you guys. So yeah, in Malaysia I actually organized civil movements and realized that actually the blockchain could do a lot to decentralize democracy. And so basically decentralizing economy, democracy and stuff like that, liquid democracy, is my interest. So if you know of anyone who is interested in endeavors like that, let me know. Structural change stuff. Yeah, thank you.
And since no one else is here, I'm just going to give a shout out to my meetup on Thursday. I work for MadeSafe. We're doing like a casual meetup at this place called John Collins down the street. It's nearby here. I don't know the exact address. But if you just want to learn about MadeSafe or talk to people that are working on projects, I encourage you to come. It's just, we'll just be hanging out and drinking some beers. And, it starts at 7, but it's also on Meetup. So if you look for Project Safe or MadeSafe on Meetup, you'll find us.
It's at Minna in New Montgomery.
Minna and New Montgomery on Thursday at 7. Be there. Okay, that's it. Everyone do your thing.